Hello, today we're looking at my 59 Velocette Venom, which I've mounted a Kevin Thurston KTT Services belt drive kit. Includes a new Kevlar clutch. I think it's a really nice modification on these bikes. There's a lot of them out there being used. We've racked up thousands of trouble-free miles on them. Also run a belt drive on my 72 Norton Commando, and I really like it. So, on Kevin's website, if you're interested in doing a project like this, he has a blog from Red Devil Motors. Gentleman Richard Miller is his name, and he chronicles his adventure putting this on and really gives you kind of a lot of insight to what a typical installation is going to be like. That, in addition with the excellent instructions and card pictures that Kevin gives you, really give you a rundown on what you're going to run into. One of the first things that Kevin stresses is getting the inner chain case flat against the engine and the gearbox. And he shows a series of pictures where various bolts can stick out and force it out of place. And he also says to not have the O-ring that goes behind the chain case in front, because that tends to make it not lay flat and not going to be needed in my case. But I was lucky. Mine laid very flat on there, got everything, checked all the bolts up. Kevin includes two shims that if you need to put them behind the front sprocket, you can do that, and make sure that doesn't rub. Both of mine, everything lined up perfect on the rear chain case, nothing rubbed, it was all installed. Now, the blog that I read on Kevin's website by Red Devil Motors, their installation, they had a lot of adventures trying to get the chain cases to match up, and they were using a pin type chain case as various screws around the outside and a cork gasket. Mine's the band type that uses a rubber seal, and then it's got this piece clamps the rubber seal down. Not a lot of wiggle room on that. I mean, it only really can go one way unless you're really going to mod it pretty heavily. Now, in the Red Devil Motors blog, they mentioned taking this spacer, making it an 1/8 inch longer, and just made a new one. And then they, with cork gaskets, I believe you either cut gasket from a thicker cork or maybe two gaskets together, but that really was kind of their story. They had a successful installation, just took a little tweaking. Now in my case, band type, I put it all together, mounted everything just the way it should be, had everything tight, and the clutch absolutely wouldn't spin. I mean, it was just, it was stuck. It wasn't going anywhere. So I pulled it back apart, began to investigate the various problems it could be. Turns out, I think, no matter how this was stamped out, I don't know, but you could see the circumference on the front half of the area where the clutch rides in was definitely lower on mine. Now, I don't know why, but that's where the majority of the rubbing was going on the inside. You could see scraping the paint off. So I supported the whole thing with some blocks of wood, got it up off the ground, used a 4x4, whatever you had laying around, a 5-pound hammer, just to kind of hit lightly on the circumference or on the crown of that front circumference. That really was the big leap forward for me. It got it so it was you could tell it was going to work. There still was some rubbing on the inside. I'd reassemble everything. I could see where the paint was rubbing off, so what I would do is just hit it with a little black primer, fast-drying primer on the inside, reassemble everything with the seal and everything, bolt it up just the way it was, kick it over, see where the paint was rubbing off. Then I would just take, here's a typical air grinder with a 3M roll-lock disc on it. It worked out real nice, just to take a little bit off that crown, Dremel with the drum-shaped stone on it was good for working on these two, they're kind of like bolts that hold on the sprocket cover on the outside that are peened over. Talking about taking material off this, not taking much off of it. So I got that going. Got it back together. It was looking in the right direction. On the blog, they mentioned to whatever this piece is, I'm not sure, that's mounted on there, would rub on the front pulley. So that was easy enough to take off. It might be some kind of baffle or something that the chain runs over the top of it. I'm not sure. I wanted to space mine out a little bit, so on their blog they increased that by an 1/8 inch. I put a 1/16 inch spacer that happened to be off Norton Commando fork nut I had laying around and just glued it on with a little silicone. It worked perfect. So I would just, at this point, just kept folding it all up, bolting it together, hitting the Kickstarter, would feel it scraping in places, not bad at this point, not like it was, but I would just go in and find out where the primer was scraping off at, grind it, and repeated that numerous times. Now it really went pretty well, maybe after 20 or 30 times, and I'm not kidding. But I decided, like in the Red Devil's blog, I was going to eliminate the felt seal. I'm going to run this belt drive dry, and I've never had great luck with the felt seals, or I've tried a rubber one before and just haven't had great luck. Saw no reason running it dry to have one on there. So I just very carefully used a Dremel to remove the 5 spot welds on there, pop the thing off. I'll have that piece and this other metal piece. Anybody wants them, they're tagged and bagged, and they will go with the bike. So if anybody wants to go back to completely stock, they can. At this point, just the slow process of doing this over and over again, I managed to get all the high spots off. Now, and you reassemble everything, kick it over, everything is smooth just the way it should be. Anxious to get it back on the road.